Well, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, we're not too bad. So, this is a recurring, I don't know, I think the people saying it think it's some kind of, pardon us, adjusting a little block at our feet that helps elevate our leg. Um, they think it's some kind of accusation that they're going to hold against us as though they're our equals. Well, now, it comes down to that we're light on the Semites. We're some kind of Philo-Semites. Oh, we love the murderers of Christ, you see. Oh, indeed. You see, of the people accusing us and myself, if we were to add us all together, there's one of us who knows who St. John Chrysostom is, who reads the works of St. John, both his commentaries and his Against the Jews, which is his chronicle of their crimes against the Christian faith and Christ himself. Right? Moreover, there's one of us who still says the perfidious people prayer on Easter for the murderers of God, and that would be myself. So, if you think that I'm going to grovel before such things, you've simply lost your marbles. Now, my little barbarian street Nazis, here's the reality of things. The Semitic enemy and their commie, leftist, brainwashed, Noahide hordes, who are an independent problem, kind of their own. They're sort of a willful slave that the other has attached to themselves. They have an inassailable position at this point. Mm-hmm. They control the money. They control the financing. They control the terms of credit. They control commerce. They control communications. They control your housing, your job, down to very almost basically they control whether or not the nationalists have shoes. Okay. In fact, no. They have commies that they've lent that control out. So your clothes are under the power of communists in sweatshops in the third world. Do you understand? So, if you think screaming, it's the Hebrews, it's the echo, 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 is going to change anything, you need to shut up and do as we say, not as you think. It will be much more successful and we'll get more done. Dare I say, I'm just better at this than you. Yeah. Since you'll notice that I have this crazy, compulsive obsession with making a credit union system based on free communes of men that work farms for profit, right? It's just an obsession. See, this could be that I'm crazy. There's a touch of that there. Genius, insanity, divinity. Now, as it rolls, though, what does happen out of this is if, say, you have 10 men and they have no permanent housing, no real stable jobs, and so forth, they pool money one time, buy a farm, work. Each of them obviously is going to be housed somewhere on the farm, yeah? Okay? They will have work because farm over any amount of acreage, 20 acres, 30 acres, is, yeah, work. Work. It's work. Mm-hmm. Good old fashioned backbreaking work. Now, they won't be rich, but they will be housed, right? And this will allow them to find, that's right, mates, and create children. Almost by magic. Almost by magic. Now, let's say we had 100 of these farms and we took the products and they all agreed to sell their stuff at sort of a farmer's market, sort of their own supermarket. To retail it to the world directly themselves. Whoa, whoa, that's like honest commerce and stuff. Huh, huh. And that would build up capital that could be put into this credit union, which would allow these people to finance their own schooling systems, their own perhaps green utilities to control their electricity. You know, maybe even dabble around with old machinery and making clothes, sewing things, making cloth, growing flax and cotton to make into cloth. I don't know. I'm going to go way out on a limb here. I mean, way out on the oak branch limb and say that doing all this would be way more useful than echo, echo, echo did it, echo, echo, echo did it, echo, echo, echo. Okay. I'm going to say that if your little word magic, it's the hooboos, it's the hebobs, what is going to work? It would have worked a long time ago. So why don't we try a good old fashioned sweat? community spirit, organization, and this is the key thing. Now, each man here would be agreeing in the initial bit, that they're looking at a life of hard work and fairly low wages. But the trade off, of course, is if these guys were, say, under the bridge in a city right now, you can't explain to me how being poor on a farm with, cock-a-doodle-doo in the morning is a lot better than waking up to a junkie trying to knife you. If you can't explain this, you've never lived. You need to go do what Hitler advised, where he lived down in Vienna with the poor. You should go read that bit of Mein Kampf. It's actually quite touching. It's quite human, And he's right. His observations of what it's like to be among the dregs of society is good. Yeah, it's valid, I think, in my view. Right? See, and so these men, these dregs, have a motivation to listen to people who are, promoting things that would help bring them up out of the muck. Right? Now, that's so much more useful than Hebrews. I mean, if you can't visually figure out which one amongst the destitute men are your kind that belong with you, I can't help you, right? See, this, of course, is why I promote these charities and such, so that, yes, you have outreach to just these people. You can filter through all the applicants and get the ones you want. Bring them into some kind of fraternal organization, brotherhood, right? And then guide them along to being better citizens who provide for a better tomorrow for all of us. I don't know. Or we can sit around and we can harp on the murderers of God. I mean, one's magic and one's just effort in the material world, right? And remember this, I'm not a materialist, right? I believe everything that the first, 7 ecumenical councils require you to believe, in the sense of literally. I believe the formularies in Christ's person, that is, there's, Christ is man and God who was born of the, okay? Literally. On the other hand, since I've read a good, smattering of saints, particularly the early saints who were mostly classically educated and had great common sense. St. John is among them. He was a great man before he was even a saint. A very smart, wise, educated man. Very, very muchly so. And, once you figure all this out, you come to the basic, what's more important is having your flock in order, your things in order. Harping about enemies is only as useful as there's a wolf at the edge of the sheep pen, destroy it. But crying wolves, 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 wolves all the time is not productive. It's stupid. And in fact, it's retrograde. It's the kind of thing that cowardly, LARPing, sissy barbarians do. See, adults who want better results create better premises. That is, for instance, if rallying in the street doesn't get you what you want, right? Well, why not own the street? Why not build the community and have the street and the square and the forum and the steps at the town hall and the police and the rest be yours? Be yours. Not go and defy other people and play little tiki torch games, which are okay. They have their use. But in the end, you're going to want your own. That's the final goal. If any other goal is the final goal, you failed. Okay? Because if basically you're relying on your enemy to give you a platform or to give you sort of a amplification boost, like because of them this, you've already placed your fate into a third party's hand. You're renting. You see? I mean, you need to be an owner, and that means that at some point, it's much better than crying and whining and rolling on your back. Oh, it's unfair, it's all good. Okay, yeah, whatever. Okay, now you band together, you go to some location, work, do legal things, produce items, sell them at commerce under controlled conditions, use the profit to build up other infrastructure that approximates the functions of both the market and the government and the charitable welfare functions of the state, and simply check out by creating your own parallel lines of power. Bingo! But hey, I'm just some kind of agrarian communist that wants you to farm for fun, Or, maybe not, you know. Because, oh, that's right, I do farming like this myself during spring and summer. I'm so much happier when I can be outside in those months, I promise you. You almost invariably notice my mood will, right? Okay? So, I mean, I tell you this, that what I want you to do will not harm you. It's not some whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Any of you men who aren't epileptic and who don't have bad joints, okay, can do what I do, okay? You should be able to produce approximately the amount I produce. And by my estimations, if there were 10 of you in groups, or between 10 and 20, there's not only would you be able to eat all the greens you wanted, but if you had any local restaurants, local supermarkets, local hippie co-ops, all these type of things to sell the products to, you could make a sufficient money to pay your bill on your land until you owned it outright, pay for your seed, pay for the basic fertilizers and manures you need, but the manure you can offset, of course, by buying your own cattle and sheep and such, you know. And of course, the sheep are wool. Wool's much forgotten that wool is a valuable product in this age of rayon, and because wool is natural and organic, you can command a good price for it. You know, you can hand spin the wool, Rumpelstiltskin style, with a spinning wheel, and you see, sounds fantastic, but it's not. It's just will and application of effort. If you have 10, 15 people doing this, you can have a lot of wool, right? And of course, in this instance, there are always these artisan style hippies, the ones, everyone's seen these virtue signaling weirdos, they'll buy this stuff from you at a good price. You just have to not, you have to be like, oh yeah, man, yeah, we totally want a better tomorrow for our own people. You're not lying, you're just letting them think what they like, you see, right? And there you all will be on a little farm with multiple lines of commerce and industry and other things available to you. Primitive industry, hand industry to start with, to be sure. But everything starts somewhere. This is the exact order of operations that real industry grew up in. So I know it's not fantastical what I'm saying. It's actually happened in real time 2 or 3 times in history that I know of, right? Because at the end of the Roman Empire, there was a slight, I wouldn't say a collapse in technical knowledge. It's just the Germans don't seem to have been interested in maintaining the mills and such that the Romans had built. Don't know their reasons, honestly, right? Because they could have. They weren't difficult even then once you'd seen them operate. It's the population dropped. There probably wasn't enough population to justify it. Where there was population, they do seem to have been kept, you see. Those are water-driven mills. Again, you need never go any further back than that if you have running water. And running water is easily created with modern pumping systems. So, you see, if you have fire, you understand, okay? You say, what? Great leap forward? I say, no. See, the difference is unlike these Chinese peasants, I would expect that you would go find good technical material on how to actually do what you want. Like, for instance, if you wanted to make a large char creator that creates CO gas as a fuel, coincidentally, now if you wanted to do that, you would go and you'd get good quality material from, say, the Department of Energy, Department of Interior, and so forth, and it's available. Look it up, study it, and have people who were qualified put the pieces together and operate the machinery. Now that there gives you the ability to move extremely large turbines and other things, essentially electricity, from wood scraps and bio scraps. If you were crafty people, you could tap into your own septic and use the methane seep gas as, that's right, fuel. You see? This isn't Great Leap Forward. This is just, whites are capable and resourceful people, And these are all just ideas because, again, unlike the Great Leap Forward, I'm not saying that all of you should go and, say, smelt steel. Okay? No. Nothing like this. You do what you can do in your local conditions, however and by that I mean you, personal, you, plural at the same time, right? You and the farm, the community, and have available to you. In some places, gasifying coal might be possible. In other places, it wouldn't be, but geothermal power might be available, and so forth. You know, other below wind that can be captured, or good solar energy profile, so forth. You see, right? This is all. This is. I'm not a control freak. I'm not a central directive kind of guy. I'm just go forth and do things that you think will work, right? You'll know they're working if you make all this electricity, make a product of electricity, sell it, and it makes you profit. See, if you make profit above all that, then it's working. You know what I mean? And generally, I guess if however clean the process is, if you like living next to that, I'm okay with you living next to it if you're okay. But my sense is that by having small, decentralized industry that was relatively close to the housing and agricultural areas of the people operating the small industry, would definitely encourage much more green and waste free energy and industry, because nobody wants to live next to the wretched stuff that the petroleum industry of today creates, you see. This isn't a bad thing either. It's again all much more useful than hoo-hoos. Like, I mean, what are they? Are they just going to come out to the middle of nowhere and tell you, oh, you're nationalists. You don't get to do this anymore? No, that's not how it happens. And anyone who pretends it does, you're being a fucking joke. Have a nice day. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Folks, I was talking with a liberal, silly person, and they couldn't make out in their mind why all these Africans invading Europe, has created violence and chaos and rape and destruction, right? The rest, the African effect, the full package. And I tried to explain to them that, that Africa's a hellhole, and hellhole people make hellhole places. So, where the orc goes, the orc goes. The orc makes Mordor, therefore Mordor goes with the orc, right? Okay, folks. Basically, they're focused on. But you said the place is a shithole. Of course I did. I mean, I can't believe people are still in denial about this. Like, this is the most simple statement of goddamn obvious visual fucking reality truth I've ever heard stated by the media in my entire life. And everyone is attempting to say, oh, but it's just not so. Yes, it is. Those countries are, look, the dirtiest, most rundown places in America are many magnitudes safer than any of these countries as far as crime, your chances of being raped, your chances of being kidnapped, your chances of being tortured, held hostage, used as a political bargaining tool, or any other number of items that we would definitely consider to be not safe to your person, right? For instance, you seldom go outside in rural, West Virginia, right? Go to the supermarket and encounter people having a firefight in the parking lot, right? On the other hand, in places of West Africa, this sort of occurrence with skirmishes between government troops and rebels and such on the outskirts of the capital are, in some cases, a daily occurrence, and they have been for years at a time. Okay? You don't hear about cities in the Western world encircled by rebels, right? You just don't. But that's Africa, you do. You don't hear about things in the Western world like this. Like, they came to our village and held all our hands down and chopped off our arms. Even the Soviets and everything is silly, right? Because, yeah, the Soviets wanted you dead relatively quickly, Now, I say that they did occasionally, sure. Every brutality you can think of, any army in the world's committed before. But these blacks committed on a systemic level. The last one, the RUF made into its own war crime by the systemic level of chopping off people's arms and legs. Right? Yes. Right. Well, the purpose, you see, before you remember, there were mines, diamond mines. They wanted the people driven away. Yeah, the terror campaign. Right. They're supposedly a Marxist operation, but I can't even. No, they're just barbarians, who said they were Marxists to get certain other groups to supply them with weapons. Simple as that, you see. But that's Africa. Okay, the Interahamwe. That's the people who conducted the massacre of the Tutsi, or the Hutu. Look, people, you know that movie, what is it, Hotel Rwanda? That's extremely sanitized. You should go look at the live pictures and such. Go read some of the reports. It's good. It's good stuff. I like to do that right before dinner. You know. I mean, I could sit and eat dinner though and watch a special on Treblinka. Doesn't bother me. Right? I'm pretty cold, you know. But Interahamwe were definitely some brutal people, and they're not abnormal for Africa. You see. So when you ask, well, why the violence? Well, it should only be apparent now. I mean, just so you understand, the Interahamwe, they were a sort of a militia, you know, and army radio, Hutu army radio, with these Tutsi cockroaches and such things like this, and basically helped direct them to certain areas. They would round up the people. The men they brutalized. Basically, they'd force you to pay so you didn't die slowly, okay? And women, you were going to be raped, raped and gang raped, and then eventually chopped up too. Right? That was standard Interahamwe practice. Children were raped and murdered as well. Oh, and probably their body parts were sold, but I have no direct evidence of that, because in Central Africa, children's body parts are magical witch doctor amulets. It's a true thing, particularly testicles, penises, ears, eyes, these kinds of things, right? Yeah. Yes. I'm not lying to you. This is part of their little witch doctor religions, right? So yeah, you know. Now, I'd like to make it clear, too, that these people basically did this with nothing but cars and machetes. They used cars for mobility, you know, and machetes to hunt people down in packs, and very little firearm deaths about it. Very few firearm deaths, you know, very few. Most all of it was machetes and clubs, maybe rocks too, I imagine. Mostly machetes and clubs. And by this, I mean you have whole roads strewn with people, like convoys of people were just chopped down as they ran away. Yes. Just like you would do field animals or something. Because that's exactly how the Interahamwe viewed it, as though they were hunting human beings. Right? They were hunting for the enemy. Yeah. There was no combat about it. This was purely a murdering spree, a murder-rape spree. When they were thieving, too. That should be understood. It's probably the only thing that saved any of the Tutsi that were actually close to the Hutu, was the fact that the Hutu militias were looting everything, so they didn't have time exactly to go kill people as quickly. Now, if they would have killed the people first and went and looted later, the death toll could have been much, much higher. Okay? And the only thing that put an end to it was the Tutsi coming back with a lot of weapons and killing a whole hell of a lot of Hutu. Because remember, in Africa, there's no equality. There's no notion of justice or anything. There's just, I have the boot or you have the boot. Now the Tutsi had the boot again, and they put about a 1,000,000-person dent in the Hutu over the years since then, right? Particularly over the border in the Congo, where a secret war against Hutu rebels was carried on with, Rwandan Tutsi money, right? And they paid for essentially the massacre of a United Nations refugee camp. Yeah. See, this is normal. This is Africa. Do you understand? This is Africa, right? So when you hear, like for instance, one side was bad to the other, both sides have done that to each other at least twice in history. You can bet your socks right on it right now. This is bad. They're trying to do make you dumb, you know. So, for instance, when they say, the rebels that are coming in to seize the capital city, are some evil force, well, compared to who? The president who eats baby testicles? That's not that yeah, that's Mobutu was a fucking cannibal. Okay. Yeah. That he ruled the Congo, called it Zaire, Well, so yes, people, this I know that's hard for you to put your head around, right? That there were actual cannibal leaders in the modern world. What? But it's Africa. Okay? And these people from the north, while they're not strictly speaking Bantus, right, and some of them are more industrially advanced than, they picked up more from the Europeans than the Bantu, right? But they're still violent. They still, this is a key thing, have immense only inner group loyalty. They don't have any interest in Europeans. They'll turn on you. The Senegalese, they don't give a fuck about the French. No, they always want a French passport because there's better stuffs. There's gibs. There's gibmies, Okay? And they want to burn France to the ground as soon as they can. Just this very second they can, they would burn France to the ground. Oh, ow. I have to hit that with a poultice. A bowl in my nose and it hurts. And take what they can. So, again, if you wonder, why? Africans is the reason it's happening. Africans! Jesus, it doesn't have anything to do with racism. I mean, look, if all the French people in Canada left Canada and came back to France, are you going to tell me that the same level of chaos would be caused in Paris by them? There'd be some debates about accents, man. It'd be like, no, Pierre, you said hoo-hoo, no, hoo-hoo. I mean, yeah, please, it wouldn't even be close, right? Anyway, it's Africans. Oh, they speak French. If you can't tell the difference between a Frenchman and a fucking African that speaks French, I can't fix your malfunction. Have a nice day. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, it's just another day in the Utopia Workers' Paradise. No, you'll find that I'm extremely sarcastic and, I have my way. No, I don't. Again, I've never been a utopian. I do believe that we can use modern science to create, I don't want to say a better world, but a better society and economy where working people could have a decent percentage of the value of production so they could buy stuff and not be in constant poverty. Where the middle class could, of course, make their little extra. The upper class could make their more. And there would still be enough so that we wouldn't have to scamper around like savages because machines and petroleum and such, and nuclear energy, to say nothing of that, which is just highly underutilized. It's insanely underutilized at any rate. Allow for force multiplication that was just never dreamt of when these crazy economic theories, these liberals and conservatives and libertarians and such spit at us. They're simply wrong. We don't exist in a backward, primitive era where we're always low, we're always short. No, we always have too much. We have to destroy stuff. We have to cut back on production. We have to stop people from working. We have to, So, yeah. It's just kind of where I'm there. You see, folks, basically, we don't care about silly nonsense like what the media talks about or the two-party people talk about. It has no value to us, What we realized a long time ago is that these Malthusians, these people that you have to have poor and there'll always be too little food, they want that to be that way. But the fact is that with modern agriculture, mixed with proper recycling methods, with proper, inputs of these other fuel sources, not just petroleum, but nuclear especially. If we use nuclear as our energy source, we could use petroleum as a raw material source, and that would be, oh my God, right? We have millions of years of electricity just sitting under a mountain in, is it New Mexico or Arizona? At any rate, it's out there in the desert there between the two. And it's heat. It's in a pool. We could collect that heat, turn turbines, make electricity, lots of it. Make lots and lots and lots of plutonium that will make electricity for eons. And with the proper fuel recycling and fuel reprocessing, you can burn it down to a very small amount and use up an immense amount of the fuel, in theory. That is the 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 amount of potential heat converted into electricity can be rather higher than 1%, somewhere in the 5 to 10% range. Right. These are immense advantages. You see, because then, basically, we don't have these dirty coal-fired plants. That coal can then be taken and have heat or electricity applied to it, however you like, and be turned into grease, petroleum, etc., etc. So the jobs don't have to go away at the mining the coal level, right? It's just the coal plants themselves don't have to work anymore. Do you see how this works? Moreover, because we've basically destroyed our industry here in North America, we could start right out with industry that was based on electricity, operating from electricity, not natural gas, not diesel, not, electricity. Because there'd be a lot of electricity, particularly if we could get the thorium liquid reactor or other molten salt reactors off the ground. The United States has all of the materials necessary inside the contiguous 48. It's a sensible move because it would provide us with security, you see. It would provide us with energy independence, right? It also would allow us to take a great amount of the garbage and trash, put it into giant incinerators, and basically not quite plasma burn it, but there wouldn't be much but gas that you could recollect if you wished and separate out the particulates, and a solid glass-like substance coming out the other end that you could, again, cut into standardized blocks and use. It would just be like any other hard, long-lasting glass, except for the composition would vary because, of course, the trash isn't uniform, right? You ask, what is it? That glass would be the silicates and other chlorates, sulfates, these sorts of things that would affect the color and the composition and the hardness, density, and such and so forth. And anyhow, it's it's better than just let it sit in the ground forever. Moreover, it provides jobs. This is all retooling, And in my estimation, it's retooling that we can do with what we have right now. Take what we have, what's fallen apart, and catapult it into something different, but similar. None of this is magical. Remember this, none of this is based on magic. The plutonium power plants are perfectly possible. They can be perfectly cheap. Depending on how you wish to do them, they can be done quite a bit cheaper than they are now, particularly if you just slap the hippie, red tape, idiot people right aside, okay? They can be done cheap. And we have enough fuel and materials to build dozens of them right now out in the desert, right next to where the fuel is. So it's just build a train track from the plants to the depository. So much simpler, so much safer, so much more effective. People say, well, some birds will get hurt, some whatever. We'll move them. We'll round them up. We'll capture them and move them. Yep, now what? Next objection. What? Some dead people's bones? We're going to grind them up and build right over the top of them. Yep. That's the price of progress. Okay? Now you say, you're being cruel. No, I'm being sensible. You see, those electric plants are going to be located out there where the fuel's already for a reason. All of those metals out there. There's all sorts of alkali metals. Almost all of the higher metals above iron can be found. And with electricity to power the mining can be relatively clean. Right? There's whole mountains out there that can be just... This is a lot of potential resources. Moreover, there are whole giant lakes of water out there that are poisoned with fluorine and other things. That water can be utilized. Now that you have enough heat to do this, you can separate the fluorine in the water, or you can make it into fluoric acid and use it, or you understand? All useful stuff. And as a side thing, we could even clean up the nuclear test sites. We'd have the capacity to do that. Essentially, use a nuclear reactor to burning stuff away, It's really not that difficult. These people want to make it hard, but it's not. It's not. The nuclear fuel is no different than any other fuel, right? In the end, the only difference is you can't exactly touch it and be right on top of it, but in theory, it works basically the same. There's a certain amount of it that has to be put together, and when that gets together, the conditions necessary for it to sustain its reaction will be there. Okay. It's not very difficult at all. Okay. Particularly for nuclear fuel. Now, to make an explosion is a lot more tricky, but to just make heat, simply stack up a bunch of plutonium and it will produce a lot of heat right now. It's as simple as putting that underwater, regulating it with carbon or graphite, and which is carbon, and then trapping the heat and turning the heat into torsional force. It's extremely simple. In theory, it's not complex. You see, people, you've been conditioned to be afraid of it. It's this great, oh God. When used for electricity, it's extremely safe. I know. People are going to say Chernobyl, right? But a crazy meth head guy that utterly lost his friggin' marbles literally had to go into the control panel and override the analog controls manually to make them do the crazy ape shit nonsense he wanted the machine to do. Everyone knew that if you did what he did, it would be. Everyone in the Soviet Union, every nuclear engineer in America, everyone knows this. You don't drain the coolant out of a nuclear reactor and then bring it up to full power. You just don't do this. Are you dim-witted? I mean, that fuel can get hot enough to turn items that are normally solid, like brick, into something like a goo or a liquid even, if given enough time. Okay? And because of the way these reactors, the solid reactors anyway, are made, when they melt and lose containment, they don't just stop. It's catastrophic, right? So you get Chernobyl. Okay? Everyone knows this. You mean, this isn't a condemnation of nuclear reactors. It's a condemnation of crazy friggin' people. Because that engineer, that chief engineer that made that happen, literally killed all those people. Do you understand? I mean, everyone else there knew what was going to happen. But they couldn't, this guy was like party boss and head nuclear engineer. Okay, this is a condemnation of bad government, but not nuclear power itself, Fukushima's not even that's just a condemnation of being stupid and lazy and cheap. Okay? I mean, if you knew you have tsunamis from that side of the water, why would you put something near the water? That's just ignorant. I mean, the Japanese are supposed to be smart. What kind of self-goal shit is that? But again, these aren't problems out in the central United States desert. There's almost no geological activity to speak of. There's almost no water to poison. And the ground has relative stability, which is why it was chosen to be the place where they put this waste in the first place. Well, it's not waste. It just doesn't produce as many kilowatt hours as it could maximal in the bizarre nuclear economy we have now. But if the plutonium was gotten out there, which is easily done, that's chemical separation, condensed, put online, the other nuclides, everything from uranium-238 up, could be fed in the correct ratios in with this plutonium, and it too will produce heat and electricity, which will allow us to fuel, a modern industry, which will bring us forward. This way, because of course, remember, all of this is in the context of an ethno-state that simply tells the rest of the world, we quit feeding them, we quit housing them, we could, well, imagine if we could concentrate fuel only on making food, tractors for food, have a lot more electric light rail, electric cars could become possible, because again, out there, Where I'm talking about using this mining from the electricity from these two, there's lithium, there's other battery materials, lots of it. Nobody quite knows. There's a lot. It's never been fully scoped out, never been fully surveyed. Anyone says it has it lying. Okay, it's just way too much area. Okay, but there is a lot of what's known. Thorium's another one. If we went with liquid salt thorium reactors, there's enough in one deposit in Utah, in Idaho. Once you paid the initial cost, which would be expensive, there's no lie. This is a more expensive startup. However, once that's done, there's enough in Idaho for 10,000 years, it supposedly is, and the DOD dug up enough for about 100,000 years. So basically, what that does is thorium doesn't fuse directly, but it creates the conditions in liquid now. It's very interesting, very easily controlled. The American nuclear science people at Oak Ridge tested it and found it to be quite feasible. It goes to uranium-233 and then that fuses. Now there's a neutron thief in there, actinide, something, actium, something proactium. You can remove it chemically because it's in liquid. There can be a filter that removes just that, right? And then you hold that for a little while. It breaks down, can be put right back in. Boom. Okay. It's essentially, what would happen is there'd be some sort of osmosis membrane where the one chemical can get through the particular salt, but it can't get back through until it breaks down because it actually turns into another element, you see. Right. Right. You see, that thus it'll have different chemical properties. Right. Yeah, I'm not quite as dumb as I look. I'm not as smart as I maybe think I am, but I am definitely not as dumb as I look. That's for true, you know. And again, out of all of the alt-right nationalist people, I'm the only one that I've heard who has any serious ideas on how to take these wastes, these destructive things that Zog is left over, because we're going to have these to deal with. I mean, we're going to have those stockpiles to deal with no matter what, right? And how to turn them into something productive, how to turn them into life, you know? And electricity is the best way as far as I'm concerned, because we can then have an economy based on electricity, and the transfer of thermal energy, storage and transfer of thermal energy can be more thoroughly invested. And again, because, you know, America's basically become a third world country, this allows us to retool, rebuild, employ people. It will require more people to be educated to a higher level. Much more technical schooling will be required to get this done. You see, these are all secondary benefits of this, you see. You know, the working class would have a better standard of life. The middle class would have a better standard of life, which means the upper class would have a more stable tenure in power, right? You see, this isn't about class warfare. It's about ensuring that everybody has their proper piece of the pie so that everybody's content, right? You see. It doesn't seem crazy to me, you know, because again, you know, we're white people. We're not friggin' Ugandans, and we're not Australian Aborigines. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Okay, and we have the capacity to turn our creative thoughts, like if I can think it, if I can think that it can be done, then other white people can make it happen. This is just a fact of reality. Anything that any white person can think up in concept, like we can go to the moon, we can do. Do you understand? We can do. All right. Now we may not be able to do it right today, you know, but we can do it in small, steady steps. And this nuclear thing can be done right now. The plutonium part and the reprocessing of the uranium is fully viable. Those are just chemical separations. They're very simple, you know. And then you simply build standard Westinghouse light water reactors right on site, and just get electricity, you know. I would fund it through this is how I would do this. This is a good way. This would keep everybody's interest in keeping it going. Have the government and the states and then have the people of the states be able to defer 1 year's tax return for a certain amount of stock in a joint stock company that does just this and then sells electricity back at very low rates, right? Particularly to industrial concerns. And then, of course, I would also push for the formation of that's right, an investment bank that would take, say, half a year's tax revenue of the government, which should be about $2.2 trillion, and make it available for, that's right, capital financing of industries that would run on electricity, mining, metallurgical processing, crystalline manufacturers, ceramic manufacture, there's all the materials for that out there as well, and so on and so forth. Is it glass? Okay? You say these are just petty things, but they're still items that can put our people to work, that give them pride in their country, do you see? Yeah, I know, I'm kind of a strange one. I can admit it, I know. But again, it's funny, these people that I'm camera whoring, whatever. I'm talking into a camera because I want to talk into a camera. They're stuck on these stupid concepts that I'm trying to charge people money. There's no monetization at all. None. Like, there never will be. Even if 18 million of you watch this every day, I still wouldn't want your money. Do you understand? Cool ideas, if you had any cool ideas, like, okay, if there's just some serious, like, mechanical reason, like what I'm saying can't work, tell me. Shit, throw it out there. Right? Dice it in. If you have something you'd like to add on to any of this, yeah, toss it out there. Sure, why not, right? With your money? No. Not interested in that, you see. Your money it's not what turns my crank. It's not why I'm pushing this log uphill. No, No, right? That's the other people, the shekel right people are doing that. That's just not what I'm here for, right? Frankly, I view it more like, well, every person who's watching this isn't watching the system's dumb shit, which is that just makes you retarded, and you're not watching the shekel right, which just makes you demoralized. Now, I might make you angry. I might piss you off, right? But the purpose behind that isn't just to piss you off, right? Though, in real life, I'd survive whatever anger you had, I promise you. It isn't to demean you, so to say. It's to make you think about things as to, the way things are, I mean, the way things are. I mean, many are right, about multicultural and the Semitic correctness and all the rest, right? Sure. But you're baked as to where, like, why do I want to be right about those things, you understand? It's a very simple rebuttal. The answer to why you should want to be right about those things is to help my people, to help my race, to help my kind, I don't care where you want to make the divide. I personally don't believe in the international white race thing. I don't. It's, I don't think... there just comes a point at which groups are unwieldy and they're meaningless. Do you understand? Okay? I do believe that there is such a thing as, like, bracket, the white race, and it sits over, Slavs, Scandinavians, Balts, Balkanoids, right? Okay, right? And that basically those people, when they stay to their own little area, like the Swiss do in their cantons, they get on all right, sure, right? And I surely don't want any of them to go or perish. But to pretend that their interests, like they're in Russia, are the same as white Americans, which is just identical to Canadians and Australians, it's a little trying. No, the Americans, Australians, New Zealand, Canada, we have a lot in common because we have common historical development, based on Anglo roots, colonization, and, sort of we're here now, It all diverges a little from there, but it is still common. Much more common than, say, people in America have with, say, Albanians. Yeah, it's just truth, Or we could even go with Greeks, if you like. Or Okay, it isn't to say that they're all like that. There's some hatred. It's just there's just a limit to where meaningful application of this is my people comes to. You know, and it's like in the UK, you can say there's a British identity, and it's like as long as it kind of meant Welsh, English, Scottish, Irish, and the other people, the Ulster Scots and people of the Isle of Man and so forth, it had some kind of meaning. Even when you include in the dominions, it has some kind of meaning. But when you start counting in all the Commonwealth countries, it just becomes a soup of nothing. It just becomes it's just a ruined soup, right? And so forth it goes. The EU, when it was just a trade union, it had some kind of substance. But when they're trying to make this identity out of nothing, it doesn't have anything. The French are attached to being French. The Germans, German, the Spanish, and so forth. Okay? Now, of course, the politicians in France and Germany and such want different things, but the people of these places are rather attached, to their ways and their customs and so forth, you see. And I don't see where pretending there's some overarching, like big world tent, white, is going to, it doesn't. Even when we get these invasions squared, there's still going to be serious quarrels between the continental Europeans that are going to have to be resolved in some manner. There's either going to have to be a conflict resolution system similar to the Westphalian system, which I don't want to have to nanny them constantly. It just doesn't seem fun, or something along the lines of a confederation. I'd go something like Switzerland to be okay, where they stay in their own little corner and there's none of this directives from Brussels shit. Okay, now that would be the best, but not up to me, right? Nevertheless, there's still going to be those. Even if all these problems were dealt with, I mean, oh, Jesus, there's still 100,000 little differences, The Anglos, maybe the world could unite into one big super state. That's possible. That's not an impossibility, but again, even there'd be some birthing pains. There would be, basically what would happen is there would be members of the elite of each country who would get slightly screwed, and there would be a certain number of working people who'd take the shaft, though on the whole, everyone would gain by this, And those people would try to, yes, rebel. And, well, let's just put it to you this way. It wouldn't be fun. And again, I don't even see why it would be necessary. Some sort of loose confederation, again, based on the Swiss model. The Swiss have a really good thing going there. The basics is the German Swiss, the French, and the Italians stay out of each other's hair. They stay out of each other's hair. They just kind of stay out of each other's hair. I mean, that would seem to be the simplest way, sort of like, oh, you Australians take care of your stuff, and then, oh, we'll trade you stuff at advantage, right? You see how that works? And, oh, you New Zealanders take care of your internal affairs, and, right? See? And same with the UK and Canada. Well, that could work great. The chief mommy daddy hegemon stuff, Europe ruled from Berlin or even Brussels. No, that won't work, Because, again, the interests of the ruling class are different from, certain people. And then you have the middle Europeans, the Hungarians and such and so forth. They have no interest in being part of this multicultural trip. I mean, maybe communism made them immune to this type of brainwashing. I don't know, But what I know is that all the countries that have said, no, we're not going to take your multicultural, they're former communist countries. This is an undeniable fact. I just observed that it is. I won't really speculate why. Again, I think perhaps it's, you'd be lied to for 70 years under communism. Difficult for people to just believe stuff. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Well, this evening again. Like we say, sometimes it just strikes a fancy that we'll record one of these at night, and sometimes they're good enough and they they see the light of day, as it were, and other times they see the trash bin of history. Yes. So, anyhow, folks, you know, we had some parole come with the the standard types of insults and things. You have no clue about geopolitical realities. Okay. Let's start in the Far East. China is a rising power. They have a navy power which is coming up. They've also aggressively asserted themselves in this little bid to grab islands, which are, if anything, I see them as forts, the same as American cavalry forts were instituted so that they could secure valuable resources in the Spratlys and these other islands. Now, from the Austro New Zealand or American point of view, that has to be checked because otherwise the Chinese will take over the ocean and control trade, and they're cruel overlords. Look how they treat their own people, and ask yourself if you'd like to be under their boot. No. Now, this is a weirdness, but the Americans are going to be going back to Cam Bay with the communist Vietnamese want us to bring our navy back. You look it up. I'm not lying. That's how much the Chinese boot sucks. You think that through. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so while we're here, I have Pakistan, which is a country that isn't a country. It's actually like 6 ethno-states, right? They're basically ethnically contiguous blocks, and they have an intricate pattern of likes and dislikes. I'd have to have it all written down in front of me to keep it straight. I mean, it's crazy, right? But they have nukes. Okay. And then, of course, there's India, which is even more of a weird patchwork of kind of ethno-states with that down to some different languages from each other, completely different languages. Not just language groups, but like Indo-European, non-Indo-European, like that type of different. Uh, yeah. Crazy stuff, right? Um, and these are going to be our allies against the Chinks. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's A number one. And now remember, too, I want to make it clear that I'm perfectly aware that in the homelands of America and Australia and New Zealand, they're gutting the manhood of the people, the virility, the warrior spirit, and they're making them sissies, right? I mean, they want pussies, here, right? They want consumerist wussies that are like Wally, have no fighting spirit. How exactly they intend to keep it going against these hordes of starving Chinese peasants, and the other third worlders, that are going to come against us is beyond us, right? Because this isn't America. Remember, has their nose. They're like Pinocchio, the nose in everything, right? Now I don't. If I was running America, I promise you, we'd fall back on our own borders, mind our own business, and there'd be some constructive chaos in the third world. But that's not how they want it, and so that's not how it is. I'm not running the show, right? But I still can observe. So, okay. In Africa, of course, it's obvious that the large economic interests in London and New York and Paris and Hong Kong and so forth, Macau and the rest, want this pillaging that's going on in South Africa. There it is. I mean, they're against these people, and well, I mean, there's only so many options, and flee from underneath the knife is, whichever way you want to do it, is all there is. Right? And now that, of course, comes into the Chinese being the rising star again. They're sort of picked by these international trader, monetary funding people, from my visional point at any rate. It seems to me like they're the picked power that are going to pillage Africa for the resources, because these international, resource trader people, they don't give a flying frig about countries and nationalities and identity. No. Ching, ching, ching. Dollars, dollars, shekels, dollars, shekels. They don't care about anything else. Okay? Right?
And I mean, in the Chinese, again, I mean, look, they're so cruel that these Africans want Europeans to come back and colonize them instead. You know, like things like at least Europeans brought schools and universities and hospitals and libraries, and you know, the Africans just bring hard work and poverty. Or the Chinese. Okay, look at the Chinese peasants, and you understand how they treat these Africans because I don't understand where you people get these crazy notions that anyone else in the world besides Western liberals believes in this notion of equality. No, the Asians are highly fucking ethnocentric, highly, even more maybe than the Jews are, right? Which, if you look at how the Jews are in Israel about these monkey men there, they're just throwing them out the window like Philip, just getting rid of them. God, it's beautiful. I mean, I wish our people would do this. I wish Sweden would do this, and Germany. You lower my blood pressure, okay? You know. But now that we're in the Middle East, we have Assad. Assad's managed to hold out. The head choppers have not taken power, which is good, because if they had, then they would have created the conditions necessary for Israel to claim that it needed to occupy all of that zone. This will not come to pass now. On the other hand, Hezbollah is going to have to take the blunt of an Israeli attack again. They're going to attack them viciously soon. There's no doubt about it. Maybe a year or two tops. They have to, right? They have to go in and make a show of smashing up the tunnel systems and so forth. But see, it's going to be largely like what the Americans did in the Iron Triangle and War Zone C, you know, in Vietnam, up there around Saigon and the what is that? The Perfume River? Is that? No, that's in Hue. At any rate, the river that runs north there out of Saigon. Um, we'd go in and smash up these tunnels. We'd smash up these villages. We'd arrest a couple VC, but they'd always come back because pretty much they were the population, you know, and the population was large. And yeah, whoops, right? You know, I mean, we'd move the population. They'd slip out from where we moved them and go back. I mean, do you know? We'd shoot at them from the air. They'd just farm at night, and so forth. Do you know what I mean? Right. You know, it's not a good situation. You know, it's really not a good situation at all for the Israelis. They have no hope. The fact is that the Shia of southern Lebanon have a large population. They very muchly back Hezbollah willingly. Yeah, there's a certain amount of political coercion, but let's be realistic. Every system has this. Let's just let's set that kind of childishness aside, right? However, look, if you watch this leader of Hezbollah give one of his little speeches, the people that are all enraptured by it, you can't just fake that. It's not easily just sort of created, you know, nowhere. You can create the kind of completely phony crap you see in communist operations easily. Okay, it's easy. That's just fear, you know. But at Hezbollah, these people are paying attention to what he's saying. They're absorbing it. They're there with him, you know. No, there's a little more going on there than just ruled by fear, you know. I think it might be the part where they defied America and the Israelis that gives them, you know what I mean, like standing, you know. And again, I don't think Israel can just bomb them out. And from what I saw last time, the Israeli Defense Force went north of that river to try to pound on Hezbollah, they got just pounced upon, just tore apart, right? Their armor got just destroyed. They were utterly routed. Their infantry almost was cut off. Their paratroopers. Okay, I mean, you know, it wasn't pleasant for them at all, right? Now the very fact of the matter is that if because remember now, I like to make it clear. You see, at this time, while Israel was dinking around with Hezbollah like this, Syria didn't have a modern army. The SAA, while it was larger on paper then, was a fucking gang. Now, after fighting ISIS and these commie Kurds for the last, ISIS and Al Qaeda and, you know, And the commie Kurds for what, the last 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, at any rate. After now they're a real army. They're capable of something like combined arms operations, and they kick pretty good ass for an Arab army. Do you understand? They're not exactly the pussy slap-arounds they were before. Okay. So if Hezbollah and the Syrians and even some of these they overhype the Iranian presence, but there are a few Iranian special forces. And if they decided to stir up the Palestinians and make them conduct, clandestine campaigns, the same, I might note, as the Jabinskyites and all these others, the Stern Gang and the Ergen and the rest, did on the British to establish the Zionist state itself, well, the Zionists would be hard pressed. Hard pressed, right? Because remember, they've placed their settlements horribly. They're not strategically tenable if these people start to use artillery on them. They're just not. They're not fortresses. They're for luxury, and well, they're arrogantly placed. It's just how it is. So, well, okay. So we go to, let's see, North Africa. Well, Libya still. We should have left. We should have left Gaddafi in power. Yeah, it would have been better if the murderous witch hadn't have had him drug her on the streets and beaten to death. Like Gaddafi or not, and I don't know. I've seen a lot of footage of him just out in the open, just strolling around, and people didn't seem to be upset at him. I mean, anyone could have knifed him, shot him, blown him up, but they didn't. I mean, it was. And same with Saddam, for that matter. I mean, there's footage of him just kind of casually walking around this, I don't know, this large bazaar, this large plaza, and there are people firing weapons all over the place. He's not fazed. He's not worried. It's just do. You can really imagine any Western leader being cool with that? No, I can't. They're all terrified of their own subjects. I mean, at least the people in this square, this guy believed he had nothing to fear from. It's a lot, and it was a good number of people. I mean, any ruler with that number of praetorians behind them is pretty friggin' secure. Yeah, really friggin' secure. I mean, do you see what I mean? Now, why is this? I don't know. I just know it is. I mean, the footage is undeniable. I mean, you have the footage of him out firing a rifle in the air, and there's hundreds of other rifle and pistol and other shots. I mean, there it is. Not even affected. You can see on his face, he's not the remote bit, fucking little bit scared. I mean, it's fairly commendable. It says something. It's to me, Iraq is at least somewhat stable now. ISIS is pretty much defeated. Of course, the commie Kurds are now going to become a problem because, I mean, I guess nobody wants to address this, but these Kurds in northern Iraq and Syria and Turkey, they're fucking communists. Real communists, not play communists like Soviet Marxist Leninists, with their leader, Lenin, and then, in the Marx, kind of like superimposed, okay? Like that kind of communists, like real communists, like not joke communists, like deadly communists, kill people by the millions communists, right? That sort. They're crazier than shit. I mean, they're super egalitarians. I think they're even part of the super anarcho-commo wing. Or at least their fighting units are, And I think that's the divide between them. Like, the political unit's more like the Bolsheviks, And these people are more like the Khmer Rouge. They'll come to liquidating each other soon. It'll be bloody. It'll be terrible. In fact, if Assad was smart, his security forces would ensure that they start to find the natural contradictions in their position, you know? The fact is that, like it as you may, the central directive types are easier to work with from Assad's point of view. The anarcho-commie types are crazy. I mean, they're like the Trotskyite world revolution sorts. They can't be worked with, you know. The other ones can. There's the cold logic of it, you know. So let's see. But from America's point of view now, of course, we want these head choppers to create this chaos because we want Israel to have this vassal state. But largely, of course, we've been stymied. We've been stymied, you see. I don't think that we planned on quite the amount of chaos that happened in Iraq, nor quite the amount of chaos that happened in Libya. Right? I think this was not planned. Some people think it was some bastard, but why in the fuck would they want to knock Easy Oil offline? If they were trying to grow Israel, wouldn't you think sending them oil from Iraq with a peaceful, pacified population there would be the easiest, best way to do it? Yeah, right? I would too, you know? But everything that they did seemed to just not point to that. See, it's almost as if, literally, this Paul Bremer just sort of did the occupation by Braille, right? Just made it up as he went. He literally like, I'm making this up as I go. Do you understand? Except for, well, this only affects a few people who are going to hear it. This Bremer's activities and stupidities affected, millions of people, you know, may not be known till, you know, the end. Could be a lot of ripples from his dumbness, you know. I mean, how daft do you have to be to fire an entire government, every one of a particular party, when it's a single party state? Like, what? Fire the whole army, fire all the police at the same time. Oh, man. You know, I mean, that's completely daft. The only outcome of such a stupid thing can be exactly what happened. Fucking chaos, right? Oh. Or, you know, you know, okay. When we first went into Afghanistan after Al-Qaeda, after 9/11, America had a perfectly valid point, you know, right? We should have went a little bit heavier there with a few more men, rounded up Osama bin Laden at that point, and shot him dead. Brought his head back on a stick. Yeah. Again, I don't do Geneva. I do blood fucking. There has to be blood paid for in these kinds of situations, you see. Now, if that would have happened that way, there could have been finality. There could have been a certain resolution to the whole thing, you know? Right? And it all could be, you know, a bad dream. And the men that are there now wouldn't be there rotting away on some permanent garrison mission. Okay? Right? We wouldn't be pissing that money away. We could be building here. These guys could be employed at home and so forth, you see? Right? Right? And it's very much like this in this entire Africa scheme. I mean, look, it's apparent that the Negroes don't want to be under the Chinese boot, right? Okay. Well, I guess if we offered them technicians and technical assistance, we could get all the free labor we want out of them. I mean, look at how much labor they can get themselves to produce when they want to make diamonds to smuggle for guns. Okay? I'm just saying, if you actually pay them, you might even be able to get even more work out of them. You don't have to pay them much either. Okay? So you see, right there, the Chinese can be blocked a lot cheaper than actually colonizing the place, just by building up the economy, investing in the economy, and a small number of key economic and technical advisors to sort of keep it all gimping along, as it were, you know. Hence the Chinese are blocked, you know, because, yeah, they don't want what the Chinese are offering, right? Now, on the other hand, you know, they're not going to make it all the way up to the first world standards, but, you know, I mean, I guess we could put them to work digging and getting rid of sewer lines that are above ground. And do you see? These kinds of basic things, you know, right? There's just a lot of things that could be done that would ensure that, more of them could work more often to create more natural resources, which could be sent to the first world, and they would make a nominal wage now, of course, which they still would eat better than they do now. We could provide them with medicine that would ensure they didn't die at massive rates, but only the ones that worked. And you see how this works? Right. No charity. No charity in the third world. Purely a business. All business. You see, this is pure tax. And, it could be a good amount of money, right? It could be easily returned. Because, again, there's a huge labor pools there. They just don't have any capital to work upon, and they're dumber than box rocks. So, provide them with technical knowledge and some capital investment, and then sort of you're going to want to hire, private professional security teams to guard these people and investments, and they'll act as power behind the throne, to be frank, to be simple, right? Oh, is that again? I'm not against this kind of neo-colonialism, but see, this way you don't have a country involved. You've blocked the Chinese. You've kept the appearance of it being 100% private enterprise by having a front corporation do this, and use picked people who are willing to literally work on 20 and 30-year contracts in the third world. Basically, they're willing never to go back home, right? And you've achieved everything you would if you colonized the place, but much cheaper and without any of the political backlash. It seems viable. Doesn't seem, right? Now, this could be in a way done in the South American country, because again, like say Argentina and Chile could be highly stabilized like this. Brazil, they might be a little too violent. There's a little too many mixed and whatever is there, but in the South where the whites are, surely there can be this kind of investment, which would bring them closer into our orbit and, yes, provide stability. Not to mention Uruguay, Paraguay, right? Same thing. Basic investments, not parasitic investments, not like the World Bank and the IMF do now, but sustainable investments that do good business for both parties. Yeah, right. That's one of those bases. Is a loyalty thing. It's a crazy idea, I know. And see, this would give us a block in the South to use against the center to squeeze them. Make them stay in the center. Of course, I am benevolent, so like for instance El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, these have gangs and turmoil. I would put an end to these things. The gangs are going to be more of these picked people who speak Spanish and who were ideologically loyal, and there would be secret police to spy upon them, and if they weren't loyal, they'd go to a cellar. There'd be no betrayals and not live. And their job would be to go to San Salvador, that's the capital of El Salvador, where these gangs' power centers are, and tee off on them full force, no holdback, 100% engagement, no rules, no Geneva, no nothing. If they surrender, shoot them. If they fire, shoot them. If you see them, shoot them. You understand? Shoot to kill. Always shoot to put your boot on them. Don't count anyone you don't even put your boot on. If you haven't drug them, you haven't counted them. Bang. It's that simple, right? Right. Now, we want high counts here. We want big stacks. We want mounds of these people, outright heats. Okay? Now, it isn't because we're some psychotic warlord. No. It's because these people are brutal murderers who push international prostitution, international drug dealing, violence across 2 continents and 4 countries, based on drug dealing and weapon smuggling and human trafficking, okay? Right. They must be dealt with terminal violence. Outright. Extreme prejudice. No holdback. There it is. Okay? And there are a few of these communist and weird other, type operations throughout the whole little spine there. Yeah. They should be just rounded right up and kneecapped. Exit the stage of history, right? Okay? Now, my sense is if this was to happen, many of these people from these countries could be repatriated then. We could say that they no longer need asylum here or anywhere because, oh, that's right, their home countries are now stable. Okay? Yeah. See? This would also cut the drugs coming to America, both the cocaine, the methamphetamines, and the heroin. What's wrong with this? Is there a bad side to this? This keeps our special forces honed at these sorts of insurgency operations and the counterinsurgency operations. Perfect. Pacification operations. Okay? You always need personnel who are capable of doing what needs to be done. Always. It also sets us up in a perfect position to attempt to restabilize Venezuela, right? Because, I personally would take off these stupid embargo, basically, is what we have on them, and Cuba. It's beyond ridiculous at this point, It's a relic of another era, And again, I would just use the minimal investments. You take back these people. Haiti, same thing. But Haiti now, I would set these Negroes to one task, planting trees on the mountainsides and bamboo, and we just try a whole bunch of things, Try to bring back rain, you see, and try to bring back some kind of greenness. I mean, look at the place from space. It looks like some kind of desert because, they've chopped everything down and burned everything up, Not good. So, try to kickstart the ecology of the place, before not to even mention the economy, right? But again, they can be more easily and cheaply dealt with in Haiti just by giving them rice and powdered milk than they can be dealt with in America. Dominican Republicans is the same, simple as that. If you wanted to go to America, you're coming here instead. And you're going to work, and we're going to give you this stuff, and you'll have, a blanket, and all of this stuff is cheaper than paying for them to be here. Just like it's cheaper to stabilize these Central and South American countries than to have their people here. Way cheaper. Okay? There it is. And frankly, as far as the Middle Eastern stuff goes, none of those refugees are a problem. Okay? They simply need to stay in place. They need to either be in Turkey or Saudi Arabia. Okay? And that's that. If they don't like that, they can be in the sea for all I care. Okay? Alright? But the Central and South American operations can be stabilized and we can send the people back. Now, that's millions of people who can be sent back. Mexico in particular, the cartels there just have to be dealt with maximal violence. Just outright, teed off on violence. The kind of violence that would make the Phoenix program seem tame, right? Now, there'd be hippies and whatever that complain. I say get rid of them now, too. Take this opportunity to simply be free of them, too. They're traitors and fifth columnists, If they had their way, these drug dealers would be able to sell more drugs to people's children, for fuck's sakes. Okay? I'm not against people. Do whatever you want to do, But on the large scale, when you think about it, the people doing this, like, 1,000 pounds of dope sales, and, they probably need to die, don't you think? Don't you think maybe that's just like, this maybe has caused some death and destruction along the way? A little, maybe, huh? So you see, but once this was done, The fact is that with a certain amount of small investments, and of course the Mexicans aren't poor, their upper class can be squeezed for quite a bit of investment cash. Uh, they can all go home and do things in Mexico and make Mexico as close as it can get to a first world country, right? And oh yes, we can send 30 million of them back and 3 million of them back to Central America and so on and so forth. Yes, we can send them back. The fuck too we can't. There's also this weird notion that we can't send people across seas and things. Yes, we can. They came here across the sea. They can go back across the sea. What a bizarre notion. Travel and the means of travel have grown exponentially. We can much more easily send them back than they were brought here. In fact, we can send them back probably at 5 to 10 times the rate at which they were brought here. Boom, bang. Oh, does this offend you? It's a material fact. The only thing lacking to send all these people away, and this goes for everywhere, for Germany, for Sweden, for the UK, for America, for Canada, for Australia, for all these places that seem overran right now, Italy and so forth, is the will to send them away. Nothing else is lacking. The means, the ability, it's all there, only the will is lacking. Once the will is found to do this, it's a trivial, small, little affair to make these people go somewhere else. They can be sent to Africa, they can be sent to Antarctica, they can be sent to God. Don't you kid yourself. It's only the will that's lacking, you know? That's the truth. You know? But again, rather than just be cruel barbarians, and because it's to our own advantage, when we do send these people home, we will stabilize their little homelands so they have jobs, so they're not being murdered, so they don't want to flee, so they work, so our investments get paid off. Right. Do you understand? Again, none of this is soft-headedness. This is smartness, you see. And of course, the South American whites will be given a more privileged status. Yeah. You see how this works? There'll be a hierarchy, which of course all the people in Central and South America aren't accept because they're not PC egalitarians at all. They're hierarchical racists who value people based on their social and their racial castes. Okay? Again, it's only Western European liberals and people infected with the muck conservative values nonsense and the equivalent of wherever you're at. Every place in Western Europe has some equivalent of that, right? And Central Europe, and the Slavs don't have it, thank God. But neither do any of the places under communism that seem to have it. But again, it's you know, these places are. I mean, they're nuts. You know, they're nuts. They're you have essentially people who hate their own type, who hate their own kind, who want to be overran, you know. But the thing is these people wanting to be overrun will make other people's instinct to want to defend this come out even more fiercely. And once that comes out enough, the others are going away. The only nice way is the way I say, the way that involves planes, trains, you know, automobiles, and so forth. The way that doesn't involve that, they just become shark food. They just become worm bait and crow food. You know? Okay? Oh, is that cruel? Is that evil? It's factual reality. You understand? Okay? You see, humans are not reasonable. Humans are primal in many ways, and about the defense of territory, about the defense of identity, about the defense of things that we believe are ours. We're outright savage, you know? And the Western people and the white people around the world, they believe this about the places they live, about the things they have, about the values they hold, you know? Right? In the main. And this third world savagery, this, you know, Islamo brown horde savagery that's threatening it in America, and the Islamo black horde savagery in Europe that's threatening that, and of course, and the Islamo brown yellow black, yeah, multicolored horde invading. Austria. All of the places have this. You see, this will bring out a defensive mechanism, and in time, the horde will go, or the horde will go, and that's it. Okay, because only the will is lacking to make them leave. Ethnostate is only willpower away. It's only willpower away. You know? And with that, folks, I guess we've rambled in circles like a crazy person for long enough. You have a nice day.